Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron, and it is time for this week's Against the Odds. Let's talk about Land Death in Modern. A few weeks ago we played Land Death in Standard, and it was pretty sweet. It just works very well in the format. It's obviously not a Tier 1 deck, but it is actually a competitive deck in Standard. Modern is a little trickier. My first thought was to play Restore Balance, but we've already done Restore Balance, and I didn't want to just rehash something. It didn't really feel right. Thought number two was to use Wildfire type effects, but again, we've already done that, so I didn't want to do Wildfire either. So we are playing a straight-up land destruction deck, very similar to the one we played in Standard. This is just the modern version of that deck. So we're not doing anything crazy or tricky. We are just straight up destroying your lands. Is it good enough? Let's figure it out. So our deck, we have 4 copies of Noble Hierarch, 4 copies of Birds of Paradise. These are our 1-mana plays. In Modern, we get 1-mana Mana Dorks, like Noble Hierarch and Birds of Paradise, and we get 3-mana land destruction spells, so we can start destroying lands on turn 2 in Modern using these 2 mana ramp spells. The downside is they are pretty fragile, and Modern has a lot of spells that kill them, lightning bolts, for example, or any kind of burn-based removal. But that's the idea of the deck. Mana Dork on turn 1, followed by land destruction starting on turn 2. So we have 2 copies of Fulminator Mage. It is a 2/2 for 1 and 2 black or red hybrid mana. In our deck, it's always 2 red because we don't have any black mana. Can sack it to destroy a non-basic land. 4 Avalanche Riders, one of my favorite cards in Cube. 2/2 for 4 mana, has Echo, so you have to pay its mana cost again at your next upkeep or you sack it. When it has haste, and when it enters the battlefield, you destroy target land. And then 3 copies of Acidic Slime, Death Touch, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land, and it costs 5 mana, 3 and 2 green. So this is our creature land destruction package, but because we're in Modern, we also get a spell land destruction package. We get 4 copies of Molten Rain. Destroy target land for 1 and 2 red. If that land is a non-basic, Molten Rain does 2 damage to the land's controller. 4 copies of Stone Rain, the simplest card there is. Destroy any 1 land, and it costs 2 and a red. We have 4 copies of Boom Bust. So Boom Bust is a split card from Planar Chaos. We have, on one side, Boom is 2 mana, 1 and a red, destroy target land you control and target land you don't control. Then Bust is 6 mana, 5 and a red, and it's an Armageddon, destroy all lands. So the cool thing about Boom Bust is the Boom side, you can do this sweet trick with fetch lands, where you can, if you have 2 mana in play and a fetch land, you can cast Boom targeting your fetch land and one of your opponent's lands, and then in response, you maintain priority and sack the fetch land, so your land doesn't get destroyed, but your opponent's land does get destroyed, so it becomes basically a sinkhole if you have a fetch land in play that you can sack in response to Boom Bust. And Armageddon, I mean, we're playing it for the Boom part of the deck, but sometimes the Bust part comes up, especially when you look at our finisher. So, the way we are winning the game, or hopefully winning the game, is Dingus Egg. So when I was building this deck, I was really puzzled by the finisher. I thought, oh, maybe we got to pay some big land-destroying creature like Terastodon or Woodfall Primus. Maybe that's how we win the game. Maybe it's Inferno Titan. But I thought, what is the most on-theme way we can try to win the game with land destruction? And it's definitely Dingus Egg. Whenever anyone loses a land, so whenever a land is put to the graveyard from a battlefield, Dingus Egg does 2 damage to that player for each land lost. So that wording is a little archaic and confusing, but basically, whenever a land goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, that player takes 2 damage. So we have all those land destruction spells, and whenever we kill a land, we're getting 2 damage from Dingus Egg. The sweet thing, too, is the Armageddon half of Boom Bust, the Bust half, can theoretically win the game all by itself. If you have a couple Dingus Eggs on the battlefield and cast an Armageddon that destroys all the lands, you get this huge stack of Dingus triggers, and you can stack them in a way that your opponent takes the damage first, and you can win the game on the spot. So that's one of the things I'm trying to pull off with this deck, is the Dingus Egg kill. And actually, that's the main way we're going to win this game, because we don't have very many creatures that are good attackers. Our creatures are all 2/2s or even 0/1s, but we don't really have many powerful creatures. And then finally, 4 copies of Outpost Siege. This one was a staple in our standard build of land destruction. Basically, you can ramp into this, and since we were 1-for-1ing our opponent's lands, we need a way to keep our hand full, and Outpost Siege is a way to keep our hand full. We keep drawing an additional card each turn, making sure we can always destroy another land, and eventually get to our Dingus Eggs and win the game. The rest of the deck, mana base wise, we have 8 fetch lands, 4 Wooded Foothills, 4 Bloodstained Mires. They are there because they're good, obviously, and can search out our stomping grounds, but they are also there because they pull off that boom bust trick, so we really want a critical mass of fetch lands to always have one in play when we cast a boom, so we're breaking the symmetry of boom bust. Then we have 4 Treetop Village, just a way to beat down our opponent. It's kind of our backup win condition. When it's animated, it is actually the biggest creature in our deck. We have the 4 Stomping Grounds, green-red dual that is fetchable by all 8 of our fetch lands, 7 mountains, and a single forest. Sideboard-wise, we're kind of geared to stop specific problems, and we also have a couple sweet land destruction spells that are only good against specific decks. Lightning Bolts and Pyroclasms come in to deal with aggro decks. Rending Volley is to deal with Splinter Twin specifically. It's an uncounterable way to break up the combo. Spreading Algae is a sweet one. 1 green mana, it enchants a swamp. Whenever the swamp becomes tapped, its controller sacrifices it, and then Spreading Algae moves over to another swamp, does the same thing. And then Boil is Destroy All Islands. It is 3 and 1 red, so it's kind of a mass land destruction spell, but only for islands. Can come in against Merfolk, can come in against Splinter Twin, so it can just randomly hose certain matchups. And then we have 2 copies of Ancient Grudge, just to get rid of an artifact or enchantment. So, as far as the odds, I think it's going to be a little rough, but I think it's extremely dependent on the matchups. If we go play these matches and we run into Burn, Zoo, Elves, Death Shadow, those type of decks, we are going to have a really hard time winning. We're really leaning, like, pre-board, we are huge dogs. Post-board, we get to bring in the Pyroclasms and Bolts, which gives us a slight chance, but I still think we're underdogs. On the other hand, if we run into Tron and Bloom Titan and blue-white-red control, I think we're huge favorites. Like, we have to be like 95-5 against Tron. Like, I don't know how Tron ever beats us, because we can just destroy every single land they play. The same goes for Bloom Titan. I think we're pretty good favorites unless they can turn to us. If they have the turn 2 draw, there's not much we can do about it. But otherwise, if they play a bounce land and we can kill the bounce land, then they play a bounce land, we kill the bounce land, we're going to win those matches all the time. And I think against control we have some shot because their deck just doesn't line up that well with us. We can continually pressure them with land destruction, take out Celestial Colonnades and such, and they're pretty much left trying to burn us to death. And in theory, we can kill them with Dingus Egg before they draw enough burn to kill us. And they don't have creatures to pressure us. So I think if we run into a bunch of aggro decks that don't care about their lands and can win with 1 or 2 mana, we're going to have an extremely rough go of it. Like, I don't know if we will ever beat those decks. If we run into control and combo-y decks, like Tron, Bloom Titan, even some like Ad Nauseam, those type of decks that need to ramp up to like 5 or 6 mana to pull off their combo, then I think we got a shot. So I don't really know how to peg the odds on this one. I don't think it's very high. I think land destruction, this type of land destruction especially, is much more difficult in Modern because it's just such a faster format. Lands don't come into play tapped. There's some real problems with playing this type of strategy in Modern. So I'm going to say that we win, let's say 20% of the time. But that is definitely subject to change based on our matchups. If we hit good matchups, I think we can actually win half of our matches if we run into a string of good matchups. If we run into bad matchups, we will do a whole lot of losing before we win. So I guess we'll see how it goes once we get in the queues and start battling it out. Anyway, make sure to check out the article on mtggoldfish.com. That is where you will find the ballot for next week's Against the Odds deck. It will have Zada Hedron Grinder and 4 new options. Also on mtggoldfish.com, all my articles, tons of other great articles and content, decks, prices, the metagame strategy, basically anything and everything you could want for Magic the Gathering. And if you enjoyed the video and all the other videos we make here, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel to stay up on all the latest and greatest. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you later.